Dun dun dun! Legend by David Gemmell. That's right. I'm Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all published by Simon & Schuster Saga Press, and I've been getting a lot of requests from you all out there that I start reviewing some of my David Gemmell collection. So I decided to go ahead and start rereading these. I mean, I bought and read all of these books in the 90s. I decided we would start with Legend, book number 1 in his Drenay series. There's 11 books in the Drenay series. They're all right here. I've got about another 15 of David Gemmell books upstairs in my library, and we'll eventually read those and review them too. But for now, we're sticking to Legend. And you know, we always review the covers and the packaging. And I gotta say, for some of these books, the covers are kind of garbage. This one's pretty good though. This one I like. This is not the original cover that came out on the original paperback. This is a re-release with a very nice cover by one illustrator named John Piccaccio, who is a Hugo Award-winning illustrator. He wins Illustrator of the Year award a lot in science fiction and fantasy circles. And I was surprised. I did not know that he did this. I've had this in my collection for quite some time, and I just looked at the back to see who did it, and I was like, oh, my boy John did it. I've met John. I've met him at several conventions. And it's a good representation of our main man, Druss the Legend. That's why it's called Legend. He's a battle axe wielding warrior. And he's retired. He's a retired warrior. And what happens in this book? Well, let's talk a little bit about David Gemmell first. He was a bouncer at an Irish bar. He was just a bar bouncer. This David Gemmell guy was a kick-ass dude. I've done that job. Not only do I work in law enforcement, and not only do I work in the state prison, but before that, I actually worked in an Irish bar as a doorman, and I threw people out. Threw them out. Tossed them out. When they's drunk, acting up. You know, being douchebags, being drunk douchebags. You know what I'm talking about? You've all been there. You've all been to bars and seen the guys to get pitched out into the street. Done it. So has David Gemmell done it. There's a little personal history of him and myself. I'm not the big guy I used to be. I'm not the big tough guy I used to be. And I've turned into a middle-aged fat man. I'm talking when I was the doorman at the Irish bar. This was like a good 15 years ago, folks. Oh, how far I have fallen. Oh, I just depressed myself. Anyway, let's talk about the book. And David Gemmell, well, we'll talk a little bit about Gemmell. When I was reading these, I was like, hey man, this guy's the fantasy version of Louis L'Amour. His writing style and Louis L'Amour's writing style are almost point for point. And so in a lot of my Amazon.com reviews and stuff, I would mention that in the reviews, right? I'd say, hey, this David Gemmell cat, he's like the fantasy version of Louis L'Amour. His writing style is just exactly like that guy's. And people were like, bullshit, man. You're full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. David Gemmell ain't like Louis L'Amour at all. And I was like, well, whatever. I think he is. I think I got a pretty good eye for writing. I mean, I write myself. I mean, I know what the fuck I'm doing here, folks. So I ignored those comments. And then, lo and behold, I was proven correct when I saw an interview with David Gemmell, and he said his favorite author was Louis L'Amour. And I was like, yeah, you sons of bitches on the internet that thought you knew what you was talking about. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to argue with me when it comes to what writers compare to other writers. Because I get it. He is the Louis L'Amour of fantasy. And I've had a couple people actually link that interview, because I think I've mentioned it somewhere else on my YouTube channel, that Gemmell and Louis L'Amour were similar. I might have done it in one of my book tour videos or something, but people have actually linked to me to that video on Facebook and stuff, and I rewatched it, and I'm like, yeah, you ain't gonna argue it with me anymore. I's right. And the internet trolls was wrong. 5 minutes into this review and we haven't talked about the book. Well, there ain't much to talk about. It's a simple story. The castle is going to get destroyed, and they got to find some dude out there that can help them save their castle. And they're like, what about this guy that used to wield the battle axe like a madman, Druss, the legend? Let's go find that guy and see if he'll help us win the battle and we can keep our castle. That's the whole story. Right there. It's written well. I mean, it's just a simple tale written by a guy who really, really does know how to write. And he wrote a good little book here. Do I think it's the best thing I've ever read? No. Do I think it's the worst? No. I wouldn't even be collecting them. They wouldn't be in my collection still if they were the worst. I still like these things. I just think that the legend, I think this book number 1 in the Drenay series is actually the weakest book in the Drenay series. I think the other books get a lot better. I think, and they're all kind of standalone books. I mean, you can read them all, you can read them in order, and there's sort of an arc and flow to it. But each one of them is a standalone story set in the Drenay universe. So Druss the Legend, he shows up in a few of the other books, and a lot of the characters kind of wander in and out of each book and stuff, but you can read them all as standalones, and it doesn't matter. I think it's funner, though, to read them in publication order and read all 11. And we will get to the others, but to Druss the Legend, it's kind of a simple tale, just a simple fantasy tale written in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's decent. Decent, though. Not, holy shit, that was fucking awesome. Nah, it was decent. It's decent. The others, some of the other David Gemmell books are like that. Some of the other ones are like. This one I'm going to give a 6.5 out of 10. Better than average. All of his stuff is better than average to great, which is why I keep him around. And why I'm excited to start rereading them, because again, these are some stuff that I haven't read since the 90s. So there we go. In fact, the high point is the cover.